So you want an Audi. And the A4, it's too low, it's too basic, too common. The Q5, it's too big, too expensive. Enter the Q3. Now in its second generation, we're going to check out this 2021 Audi Q3 and see how it stacks up against some of the competition and if it's a good purchase. The Q3 is the baby of the North American Audi SUV lineup and starts life at a reasonable $34,000. As option, this particular car is just north of $39,000. It features the premium trim line and the upgraded 45 TFSI motor. It's a 2-liter turbocharged inline 4-cylinder that produces 228 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. Power is sent through an 8-speed automatic to a standard Audi all-wheel drive quattro system. This Q3 features the standard MMI touchscreen and virtual cockpit systems, although an upgraded system is available. The seats are trimmed in black leather, and the interior does offer even more space and practicality than its hatchback counterparts. This includes easily accessible and adequately comfortable rear seats, as well as a spacious trunk and standard auto-opening, auto-closing tailgate. And while the S-Line package is now standard with the 45 TFSI motor, I do wish that this car was equipped with the optional black optic sport package that includes sportier front seats and a blacked out exterior, as well as upgrading this car's 18-inch wheels to black optic 19-inch wheels. Alright, that's enough chit chat. Now let's get this Q3 on the road and find out even more. Let me start by saying that the seating position is quite nice, the driving position here, and the fit and finish is exactly what you'd expect of an entry-level Audi, which is that it's better than most of its competition. And if that, along with a stylish exterior design, is where your desires in a car start and finish, then this car is more than acceptable, and I'll leave it at that. But if you want a little bit more, and if you're hoping this is kind of similar to, say, a GTI, or if you're saying to yourself, maybe this is as dynamic as an A4 or a 3 Series, just a little bit lifted up, I beg to differ. Unfortunately, the steering feels quite numb, and the car does oversteer a lot more than I like. Of course, this is typical of Audis. However, a lot of their performance models have gotten really good at hiding this. You're not going to have that hidden away in a Q3 like this. You're going to notice the car's understeering, and it feels very front heavy, very nose heavy. All Q3s do come in all-wheel drive, which is a huge benefit. Unfortunately, though, it is a Haldex system, which is front-wheel drive biased. So the car, it definitely feels significantly better than a front-wheel drive A4, or even maybe a GTI to be fair, but it definitely doesn't feel as planted and solid as a rear-wheel drive car, or even a quattro car with an Audi line that's rear-wheel drive biased, such as the Q5. Now, I'm sure there are people who are thinking to themselves, if I get into a Q3 over a GTI, or maybe over a Jetta, or maybe over an A4, like I said, it'll give me a slightly more stylish car, higher up, and more roomy than said cars. And that's true. The car is more stylish, and the car is a bit more roomy than those cars. So there's just a bit of a disconnect between you and the road in this car. And I don't mean that in the sense of plush, soft ride, say maybe in a Range Rover, but instead you kind of notice that the car doesn't want to do exactly what you tell it to do, and there's this constant battle between, do I have to steer more, do I have to steer less, do I have to brake here, it doesn't feel natural. And I'm not saying that in the sense of performance driving. I'm saying on any windy road, I'm going only 34 miles an hour right now, and the car just doesn't feel as settled as I'd like, even at these speeds. And this is partially due to the fact that this is built on VW's MQB platform. Now, this is a good platform, and it's shared by many other VW and Audi products, such as the Tiguan, the Golf in a certain sense, and many other cars. But the point is, this begins to kind of feel like a Golf on stilts. And I don't mean, again, that it's just a higher up Golf. It just feels like a Golf that's wobbly and lanky, and doesn't really know what it wants to do, doesn't have that low center of gravity that you'd kind of come to expect from a car like a GTI. Now, with this particular 45 TSI motor, you do get a good chunk of horsepower, and it does feel sporty enough. It just doesn't really inspire confidence going around a windy road. For those of you who have been watching the videos, you know I gotta do the tall boy test. And if you don't mind, comment down below with some guesses as to how many cups this car can fit, how many tall boys this car can fit. I'll give you guys a hint, which is that the center armrest still doesn't fit a tall boy in these Audi SUVs for some reason. Other than that, comment below. Here's the tall boy test. Check it out. Now, I spent quite a bit of time in the previous the first generation Q3, and that car actually felt a bit more dynamically capable or present, if you will, than this does. And that's a bit of a letdown for me. Now, obviously, this is a brand new vehicle. It's now on this new MQB, or on this MQB platform that exists within the VW conglomerate, and it gives you even nicer styling and certainly a really, really nice welcome upgrade in the interior, but it just doesn't feel the way that I'm expecting when it comes to the driving component. Now, again, if that doesn't matter to you at all, which I'm assuming for some people looking to buy this car it doesn't, then kind of don't worry, I guess. But for me, it does bother me, and again, just even in basic slow driving, I notice these little details. There are, of course, pros to this car. For instance, the fit and finish, as I mentioned, is fantastic. There are some scratchy and hard plastics, but other than that, the materials that have been used are decent. The build quality, there's no creaks and cracks and squeaks. Everything really works, and the MMI system is a real highlight of this car. Now, I'm not always the biggest fan of a touchscreen system, but in this particular car, it does work. It has a slight haptic feedback, and in this model, it doesn't have navigation, but it still gives you a very large screen, all touchscreen. You can go into the radio. Shouldn't play the radio right now. You get the virtual cockpit that's been slightly refreshed. Again, because this car doesn't have navigation, you can't make the gauges smaller in this particular car and do the full map, but it has driver assistance features like front collision warning, blind spot detection, and all of that really makes this car feel very nice. Again, the screen in particular is very, very detailed, yet simultaneously simple to use, and that's something you don't find in every virtual digital dash cockpit type thing. Sometimes they're too simple and not customizable at all, and don't really give you the information you're seeking, and other times they're just too complicated or doing too much. And a perfect example of that is in the GTI and the Golf R. I think it's a little too cluttered. This car has it down pat. I don't really mind the more traditionally styled AC controls in that it doesn't have that large screen you find in now higher level Audis. The entire controls are a bit far for even my reach at my height, and the volume knob in particular is extremely far away in the far right corner of the center console, and that really requires you to lean forward and pay attention to it more than I'd like. Usually Audis have it down here in the lower center console, and that makes using it so easy and so natural. You don't have to even look down, you can just grab it, make your adjustments, and it's one of those little finicky things, but as a BMW fanboy, BMWs tend to have really nice ergonomics, and there's a couple little things in this car, particularly those switches down here, that require too much attention, I believe. Gotta look down, gotta think, and that's kind of commonplace now in many new cars. You have so many touch screens and buttons and switches, you have to always be looking. You can't just make an easy adjustment by feeling your way around, and it's one of the little things I gotta point out. Otherwise, this car feels like a spruced up economy car. And technically it is, because it's basically a short wheelbase Tiguan, of which you cannot buy in the US, but in other markets. So it's the same thing, just with a higher quality fit and finish, nicer materials, coming standard with all-wheel drive, slightly more powerful motor, particularly in this model. And it gives you that same sense of reliability, functionality, sensibility, with a little bit of icing on the cake. And I don't mind that at all. And for those who want a stylish, reasonable car at a lower price point than, say, Q5, this is a completely viable car compared to some of its primary competition, mainly the BMW X1. I gotta say, the fact that this comes standard with all-wheel drive, for instance, is a benefit. And I think this car does offer a bit more of a stylish, elegant car. It seems to be a car people aspire to a bit more than a BMW X1. And again, coming from a BMW fanboy, I gotta admit it. It is a stylish car, the S-Line pack, everything. And if you trim it the right way, option it up the right way, such as this exact car, it is a good chunk of change below even a base Q5, and no one really wants a base Q5. Look, the Q5 is nicer to drive, but this offers a fantastic value proposition and a really good bang for the buck. If it was my money, I'm taking a Golf R. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. Make sure to tune back in for more content every week. And as always, this is Rio. Peace.